All right. Welcome, everybody. And thank you for joining us for the first ever Fantasy Philosophers episode here.
Yeah.
Today, Patrick and we're going to introduce ourselves, talk a little bit about our background and our inspiration for starting this video and podcast series up. And then we're going to talk about a couple bold takes as time allows. Hopefully, we'll get through all of the four that we've prepared. But we're going to talk about a couple players who we have some bold takes on and why we feel that way, or maybe we don't. We'll find out as we get going. But I'm going to toss it over to my good friend here, Patrick, and let him introduce himself and just tell you a little bit about his background in fantasy football.
Hey, how's it going, everyone? Again, welcome to the first episode of Fantasy Philosophers. Very excited. Just to give y'all a little bit of background, I actually started fantasy back when I was a few weeks before my 10th birthday. Long story short, my dad was actually in the hospital. He had a heart attack. So with school starting up, I was staying with a good friend of mine. Shout out Logan McFarland if you hear this. I remember you. But him and we got on this fantasy site. I believe it was called smallworld.com. No idea if it still exists. I'll probably check that out once we get done here, as a matter of fact. But been playing fantasy ever since, whether it be football, basketball, or baseball. It's really just an outlet for me. I love sports. Played football in particular throughout junior high and high school. It's just still a passion, whether I'm watching, playing, for fun, or diving into fantasy. So it's just a passion that I have, and I'm real excited to have the channel, not only to share, but to learn from others, and probably most importantly, networking. Real quick, a few shout outs. BDGE, Big Dog Gotta Eat, Nick, Snacks, Animal, Noah, Mike, what up? Love you guys. Keep rocking. Also, another shout out at the Fantasy Football Show, Smitty, what up? Keep working. I see you. Last but not least, probably most recent group I came across, Fantasy Stock Exchange. Notorious, aka Nick, Lucas, Tyler, Bush, Danny, Dwayne. What up, y'all? Keep up the good work.
Word, appreciate it, Patrick. That's Patrick's background. A little bit about myself. My name's Dustin. I have been playing fantasy football for about 14 years now, since I was about 16 years old. And to me, fantasy football is just a giant puzzle, man. You're looking at all the different clues in order to figure out that championship solution, and that's all it really is. And that gives me great joy in trying to figure out the puzzle and solve the puzzle and win that championship. A couple of folks that have inspired me to take this next step here today and start this channel with you. The football guys, Cecil, Sig, Matt, I'm a longtime listener, longtime subscriber. I consider those guys my fantasy football family. It feels like, I've never met the guys, but I guarantee you we could show up at a bar, sit down, have a couple drinks like we're long lost friends. I feel like I've known those guys for a long time, even though all I've done is listen to their podcasts and watch their YouTube videos. So those guys, big inspiration for me. Dynasty nerds as well. I love their film grind. I aspire to be as good at watching film one day as they are now. And then JJ Zacharyson, the late round QB himself, top-notch analytics. And he's got these quick-hitting pods that if you haven't checked them out, highly recommend. I listen to him all the time. 15, 20 minutes of just solid, top-notch analytical stuff. It's real good. So those are our shout-outs. Those are our inspirations, and a little bit of background about the two of us. But now we're going to get to the good stuff that hopefully everybody, this is what you tuned in for, right? So first bold take, I'll let Patrick start. He's got a running back he wants to talk about. So take it away, Patrick. Let's talk about this dude.
All right, let's dive right in. Again, just to emphasize, these are bold. All right, we're going bold with it. Episode 1, baby. So hang with me here. So Kenyon Drake, that's where we're starting today. Bold prediction: Kenyon Drake finishes top 3 overall at the running back position in 2020. And let
I
me
like
tell
it.
you why. Real quick. And I know the first thing I hear, oh, he's already 26 years old. His prime is coming to a quick close. He's going to fall off a cliff. I've heard it over and over. Well, let's pump the brakes, everyone. Let's pump the brakes. Professional touches totals for Kenyon Drake: 456 rushes, 144 receptions. For a 26-year-old, that is significantly low. Now, I know what you're probably thinking now. Well, obviously, he's never been a proven 3-down back. Again, let's pump the brakes. So, first and foremost, when he was in Miami, he was there with Adam Gase. I don't know how everyone else feels about Adam Gase, but he's practically fantasy death in my opinion. So I'm throwing those out the window. End of story. The first chance Drake has actually had to be a true 3-down back was this past season, the last 8 games with Arizona. And let's take a quick look at what he did. 123 rushes for 643 yards. That's 80.4 yards per game, average 5.2 yards per carry, 8 rushing touchdowns. Not to mention, in those 8 games, he was targeted 35 times, had 28 receptions. So he's obviously involved in the air raid pass attack. Don't want to hear it anymore. Air raid, only no, he's involved. Yes. So you multiply that by 2 for a 16-game schedule in fantasy. Ooh-wee, watch out. He's coming. So we can even go a step further. Back to college. He's still never had a chance to be a 3-down back. In 2012, when he was at Alabama, well, guess who else was there? Eddie Lacy. Say what you want about his pro career. The boy got it done in college. From 2013 to 2015, guess who was there with Kenyon Drake? Derrick Henry.
That's right.
Beast. So again, he finally gets his opportunity with Arizona. Looked to be a good three-down back to me. He got that transition tag. It's a prove-it year. He's going to have that added motivation. And let's also think for a second they brought in DeAndre Hopkins. How in the world will any team be able to stack that box? You tell me. Hopkins, Fitzgerald, 2 future Hall of Famers, Christian Kirk, top prospect out of college. I know he had a down season, but even Andy Isabella.
Yep. Hakeem Butler should be
Talent
back and
is
contribute
there.
this year.
I agree. Kyler Murray did tremendous for a rookie. I expect him to take another step forward.
I agree there.
I don't know how in the world Josh Jones out of Houston fell to the 3rd round, but talk about steal of the draft. I just see Kenyon Drake getting every opportunity to succeed. Top 3 finish. It's coming. You heard it here first.
All right. Well, I think you brought up some good points there, Patrick, to kind of support your bold take there. I'd like to talk a little bit about Kenyon Drake as well, to add on a little bit to what you're talking about here, because you said he's going to be a top 3 back this year. And my stance on it is I agree, kinda. And what I mean by that is I'm not ready to say myself that I see him as a top 3 back and make that prediction that it's going to happen. However, I will say I do see it in his realm of outcomes, and I don't think it's crazy unlikely. I actually, it's really early right now. It's basically June. So, in my rankings right now, I've got him about RB7, RB8. So, RB3 isn't too far off from that. So I'd like to just talk a little bit about why I've got him so high. And you actually hit on a lot of those points already. He joined San Francisco in week 9. And he finished in PPR scorings. He finished RB17 last year, and that was after switching teams last season. And as you already kind of explained, he got a majority of his production in those 9 weeks. In those weeks after week 9. But even last year, you were saying you'd throw out the times with Adam Gase. Well, I guess Adam Gase wasn't there last year, but you know, PPR 14 finish for him his last full year in Miami. So as an RB2, that's that's still serviceable, right? So he's obviously got some talent. He's obviously fantasy relevant. Um, but he did start getting the lion's share of work basically as soon as he came to AZ. Um, that second half of that first game is when they said, you know what, David Johnson, he ain't cutting it, man. We got to give this young dude that we just brought over. We just got to give him work, and he balled out for sure. Um, Looking at the game log there, he feasted, man. And I'm going to throw a disclaimer out here. These point totals I'm about to use are from my Dynasty League, and I totally forgot until after I had wrote all this up that we get 0.2 points per carry. So the points might not be standard for everyone's league, but they should be fairly close. Um, but I just love these stats here, right? So looking at the game log, only 2 out of the 8 games with Arizona was he under double-digit fantasy points, and that was 8.9 and 9.7 points. So just barely. 5 out of those 8 games, he scored 14.8 points or higher. He had a 29-point, a 37-point, a 43-point, and a 21-point finish in some of those weeks. And like you said, man, I expect the entire Arizona offense to kind of take at least a small step forward in year 2 with Cliff. Defenses might also catch up, but that remains to be seen. I did also hear an anecdote that Cliff told someone, he mostly ran vanilla stuff last year, and the air raid builds on itself, so he wasn't able to add all those wrinkles that he has in this offense. I would expect to see a lot more wrinkles this year. David Johnson's gone. They spin all that. I say they spin all that. I don't remember the details of the trade, but they gave something up to get him. So he's got like the draft capital, the trade capital on his side. So that's why I've got him ranked high. The reason I don't think he would be a full lock for a top 3 RB this year, he was 4th among RBs in PPR points from week 9 on once he joined AZ, but his opportunity didn't reflect all that, right? Because he was 14th in targets and 11th in rush attempts among RBs in that span. So he would need to maintain some efficiency, which, we've seen some efficient seasons. Aaron Jones' season last year, crazy efficient. It's not out of the realm of possibilities. Last thing I got to say about this is Rich Rebar did a great write-up about him a while back for Sharp Football Analysis, and I'm just going to take a small tidbit of what he said to kind of support that, right? So he averaged, Kenyon Drake averaged 0.89 yards per route run with Arizona, which ranked 35th out of 39 qualifiers at running back per Pro Football Focus. Teammates David Johnson, who's no longer there, averaged 1.59 yards per route run, and Edmonds 1.04. So they were better than him in that area. Like I said, Johnson's gone, but Edmonds remains, and they drafted Eno Benjamin, who's projected to be like a pass catching back, right? And he did average the most receptions per game at 2.3 over his collegiate career for all running backs invited to the combine this season. So, you could say that maybe he's the most prototypical pass catching back in the draft. Not a lot of draft capital, but he is there. And Edmonds looked, I guess, okay, depending on who you talk to, I guess, last season. So I'm not convinced that Drake's going to get all that passing game work. But, man, I just don't see how after what he did last year, at least to start the season, he's got to be the guy. So that's what I got on it. I think he's pretty much a lock to finish RB7 or 8. I could see it happen in RB3, man. So, good work bringing up all those points you had. I know I just talked a lot, but you got anything you want to refute or add on?
No, I mean, I think we're for the most part aligned. When I see a guy get traded to a new team, literally hop off a plane, show up at the game, no practice prior,
And
get
I'll say
told
San
what to
Francisco was no
do,
slouch defensively.
get told what he needs to do play calling wise in the huddle against San Fran, one of the top defenses of last year, and he balled.
Yeah, no doubt.
Balled. And now they got Hopkins. What are you going to do? What are you gonna do? Someone tell me.
I guess we'll just have to wait and see, huh?
Only time will tell. You heard it here first.
You heard it
So
here
what you got
first.
over there, Dustin, my man? What you got?
Yeah, for my bold take, and maybe this isn't super bold, but for me, especially right now, I think Carson Wentz at his typical ADP, you gotta get him. You gotta get him, right? I think, you know, I think he's a lock for a top five finish. And, maybe it's just me. I think the whole injury prone thing is a myth. He's played 4 seasons, completed two of them completely. Um, and the 2 seasons that he missed, in the regular season, he missed 3 games and 6 games. I'm sorry, 5 games respectively. So 8 games over those 2 seasons that he was hurt. 2 out of 4 seasons, maybe that is injury prone to some. I think that ACL tear was just plain bad luck. So, yeah, I could say, injuries, not a thing, but that's not really why I think he's a top five finisher. Um, so let me give you some stats and some things that have led me to believe in this take here. So his career passer rating versus top 10 defenses, and the defenses are ranked in passer rating allowed, minimum 15 games. Carson Wentz ranks number 5 on this list at 89.7. That's his passer rating. Carson Wentz in the red zone last season, 83 plays, 301 yards, 30 first downs, 21 touchdowns, 0 turnovers, 107.7 rating. In the red zone since 2017, he ranks number 2 in the league with a 107.2 rating. On third down since 2017, 105.2. That's also good enough for number 2. The man is good when it counts, especially, but he's good when it doesn't count too, for the most part. Now, I'm not saying he is, the next lock to be a Hall of Fame quarterback, but there's no denying that when the dude plays, he balls. He puts up numbers, right? So, um, last year, he became the only QB in NFL history to have 3 straight games with 30 plus completions. You know who those games were against? Division rivals. You know how many interceptions he threw in those 3 games? A big fat 0. The man
Impressive.
plays good when the game is on, when things are on the line, especially. So I got a couple more things here. Um, per Football Outsiders, Carson Wentz had the 9th highest deep ball accuracy in the NFL. That's pretty good, especially when you consider that he had a revolving door of receivers last year that consisted of a lot of practice squad guys. I myself, I'm a fan of Greg Ward Jr. I think he's a sneaky deep wide receiver flyer this year, but he's not exactly going to, impress you like Odell Beckham, DeAndre Hopkins, somebody like that. Um, so again, 9th highest deep ball accuracy. At the same time, Eagles wide receivers dropped 12 accurate deep passes. That's tied for the most in the NFL. Um, so when you consider that, 12 incompletions on accurate deep passes. I watched some of them. There was some touchdowns left on the board. So considering that, only about 50 points separated Wentz, who was finished as QB10 last year, from the QB5, right? And a deep pass is considered a pass that goes over 20 yards. So if you say every single one of those passes that were dropped, all 12 of them would have been completed for exactly 21 yards and no more and no touchdowns. You're already looking at over 10.1 points. So then, if they were only 21-yard passes and they were tackled immediately, he's only 40 points out of QB5. And I'm telling you, I watched some. There was at least 2 touchdowns left on the board. I also learned
Oh, I
that
know. I
Nelson
know.
Aguilar cannot track a deep ball to save his life, my friends. Whew, that was bad to watch. So in
Nelson
conclusion,
Aguilar.
I
Oh,
know,
what
dude, it was
happened, bro?
tough, man. I felt bad for him a little bit, but that's a totally different topic. So just in conclusion, and then I'll let you agree or tell me how wrong you think I am. Um, So depending on um, who you use for ADP, Carson Wentz is roughly in single QBs at roughly 99 overall and the 11th QB off the board. He goes anywhere from about 33 overall to 45 in Superflex ADP, but he's going around guys like Rodgers, Josh Allen, Baker Mayfield. And let's not forget, Carson Wentz has the same rushing and play extension upside as guys like Rodgers and Allen. This time last year, he was being drafted a full round sooner, and he's been on a downward trend ever since. And honestly, I kind of expect him to keep falling because people just aren't in love with that Eagles offense really outside of Miles Sanders. I already mentioned that wide receiver core last year was just a revolving door of dudes. Um, and then finally, I'm going to hit on that injury myth that I think is a myth. Again, 2 out of 4 seasons, he's played all the regular season games. And in 2018, he only played 11 games, still finished as a QB2 at QB 23. And then in 2017, he played 13 games. So only played 13 games. He missed 3 and still finished as QB5. So this guy has already shown he has QB5 upside and potential. He finished as QB10 last year with who at receiver? And that QB5 season came and not even a full season. So for me, going as QB11 off the board, this guy's a must-have if he falls that far. Especially in Dynasty, I think you can probably get him at this discount right now because, again, no one is excited about that offense. Yeah, they added Jalen Reagor, but it's pretty rare, honestly, for rookie receivers to produce in year one. I think Reagor is probably going to be like at least a top 50, 60 wide receiver. I like Jalen Reagor, though, so maybe I'm biased there. I just think that, if he gets Deshaun Jackson back, even if it's only for a couple games, is Arcega-Whiteside going to take a step forward? I think Greg Ward is going to be a solid option for him, like maybe like a short area safety blanket. Dallas Goedert's going to get better. I just think that the community right now is fading him when we shouldn't be. So that's my bold take. Carson Wentz, top 5 QB next season.
Well, I'll tell you what, Dustin, for the most part, I agree. I agree with all the supporting data that you brought for us. So great research. Well done.
Appreciate it.
Here's my issue.
Yeah, let's hear it.
I see the talent. If I know he's there for all 16 games of the fantasy season, I'm buying in just like you are. Unfortunately, me personally, the knee injury, not as concerning, but obviously noteworthy.
Sure.
But what really gets me is that back injury that he had. For me, once a quarterback has a back injury, granted, if he falls to me at just a hell of a value, then I'm going to take him. But I can't say I'm going to target him. And I would honestly probably pass him, even if I knew I was getting him, say, a round later than his ADP. I'd probably still pass him personally.
Okay.
Beyond the health, the fact that they drafted a quarterback, Jalen Hurts, in the 2nd round, that makes me wonder, does the organization even trust him at this point? I also feel that drafting someone such as Jalen Hurts, who's a proven rushing commodity, they get down in that red zone. Who's to say Jalen Hurts doesn't go out there, play a little wildcat, possibly play the QB position? I
That's a
just
great
see a
point,
lot
man.
of I just see a lot of factors that, although I buy into the talent, there's too many obstacles in front of Wentz for me to buy into that.
Okay. Man, I had not thought about Jalen Hurts playing the wildcat role. For me, Jalen Hurts was that injury insurance, right? That's how I've looked at it. So for me, I think the Eagles are smart for 2 reasons. One, the injury insurance. So if you believe he's got a propensity for injury, it's smart to take a quarterback early that you think can step in, because let's be honest, when he went out last year against Seattle with the concussion, it was painfully obvious from snap number one without him that the Eagles had no shot of winning that game. So if Hurts is there and that happens, maybe they do have a shot. That was my thought. Additionally, with everything that's going on in the world right now, COVID-19, what if your quarterback comes down with COVID in the middle of the season and you have to play without him for 3 weeks? Jalen Hurts steps in and they barely miss a beat. That's kind of where I was at on it. But you bring up a great point, my friend, that maybe they do have some wildcat aspirations for him. I had not even thought of that. So, hey, that's what it's all about, man. We don't have to agree on everything, but
Just some
definitely,
food for thought.
yeah, definitely like
One thing,
hearing the different takes, you know. So
yeah, I mean, that's what this is all about, man. Philosophers, that's what we do, you know. One other thing, real quick, about Wentz that I do like, assuming health, he's going to have two great tight ends to target. And when you got Rager, who can stretch the field, if Djax somehow, some way stays healthy,
if he plays 6 games, man, that's a win.
I mean, he's stretching the field, and
Still got
me,
Alshon.
I know a lot of people have lost hope in JJ Arthega-Whiteside. Personally, I'm still on him because based on everything that I've seen, the organization as a whole has come out and said that he played through lower body injuries the entire season last year. So have we seen even a glimpse of what he has to offer? I don't know that we have.
I don't think
So,
so either.
you know, going
And I
back to what you said, I think Wentz absolutely has the talent. He has enough weapons around him. I'm out just health concerns, and that's the
sure.
only concern for me. But I can totally see that being achieved, assuming he plays the full 16 games.
Yeah. Well, hey, humor me real quick. Let's do a little exercise. So let's think strictly redraft. Let's throw dynasty, best ball, all that stuff out the window. Just redraft, normal redraft league. Um, you're sitting there. You've yet to take a QB. Um, let's say it's one QB league. You've yet to take a QB. You're up. You're thinking of taking a QB with this pick. You've got the option of Rodgers or Wentz. Who you got?
Oh man, that's, you know, it's interesting that you asked this question. I want to say Wentz, but I'm torn. The reason I'm torn is although Green Bay has proven that they're going to be run dominant, I think that by not only not getting Aaron Rodgers a receiving weapon, but going as far as to taking Jordan Love as high as they took him was a big slap to the face.
Oh, you
And
got the Rodgers comeback tour, huh?
I think Rodgers may be playing with a vengeance this season. I
Okay.
see Rodgers putting it all out, proving that they messed up, and possibly asking for a trade after the season.
Okay. Well, I got
That's
two
my
more
take.
names.
So, to
I got
be
two.
honest, if I have Wentz and Rodgers, I'm flipping a coin.
Okay. Well, I got two more names I want to do this with real quick.
Okay.
So you're 50-50 on Wentz and Rodgers. What about Josh Allen versus Carson Wentz? Who you got?
This one I will go with Wentz. I like Allen. I just don't like him as a passer, unfortunately. Lots of fantasy potential in the run game, but the fact that they have not only Devin Singletary, who, I mean, based on the amount of playing time he received last season, was amazing.
Agreed.
They now brought in Zach Moss. I mean, as an organization, do you really want your quarterback to keep running the ball down around the goal line when you have a Moss to give it to, or you
Probably
have a
not.
Devin Single? and I don't have the stats in front of me, but his accuracy on deep passes was just horrendous. I mean, he does have Diggs there, which is a plus and should help him, but he himself has come out and has said, I already have rapport with John Brown and Cole Beasley. So, anytime a receiver changes a team, with the exception of D-Hop, I got a little concern. That's a good one. I would go Wentz though. I would.
Okay. Last one for you here. Baker Mayfield or Carson Wentz?
Mayfield.
Mayfield. Okay. So
And that may not be the most popular answer to that question.
I'm big on Mayfield this year, though.
I just
So
think Freddie Kitchens destroyed the Browns as a team.
yep.
I mean,
He wasn't. He did not. He
Mayfield
was not ready for the head coaching job. So I agree
Mayfield
there.
is a winner. Mayfield's a winner. If anyone can face adversity such as he's going through with such a terrible down year after looking so promising his rookie season, I think I'm confident that he's put in the work. He's going to have more established rapport with Odell Beckham, who should be healthy. I know Jarvis Landry is recovering from injury, but my goodness, king of consistency there.
Right.
And then that new run attack that they're bringing in with
Stefanski.
Stefanski. I mean, when you got Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt and an upgraded O-line, which was horrendous last season. So thank
Yep.
God they addressed that issue. I think it's a major bounce back for Baker. I think he's a steal at where he's going ADP wise, and it would not shock me at all if we're considering Baker a top 5 quarterback going into 2021.
I hope so, man.
So
I
I'm
just
going.
I just acquired Baker and
Yeah,
OBJ. So
I saw that.
let's let it
I
roll,
saw that.
baby.
I know.
Um,
Well done, sir.
so that's an interesting little exercise we just did because those four guys are all going within picks of each other at ADP right now. So that's kind of what you're looking at. We got a coin toss. You flat out Wentz over. Coin toss for Rodgers. Flat out taking Wentz over Josh Allen. Um, and then you got Baker over Allen. So I'm sorry, over Wentz. So
Yeah, I mean by a slim margin. To
yeah,
be fair, I just want to make that clear. It's not a smash pick on Baker. I had to really think that one through because Wentz has the talent. The upside
so
with Baker, the receiving core, the run game, the O line, the new coach. I
yeah,
think it's
and
Baker's year.
I love your take on Baker. I already said I'm a Baker fan. I think he's going to bounce back. What also is understated to me about the Baker situation is a little bit off topic, but it's not just Stefanski that got the upgrade. The head coach. They brought in Chad O'Shea to be the passing game coordinator. They brought in Bill Callahan to be the offensive line coach. Like, I think I'm missing somebody else that they brought in. I'd have to go back and look, but they
Brought in
upgraded.
Austin Hooper.
Yeah, they're going to be able to run two
Austin
tight end
Hooper,
sets.
just another weapon.
Yeah, so they upgraded majorly, not just in the personnel department, but in the I feel like they made a major upgrade in their entire coaching staff. So I'm excited to see
Yeah,
what happens with it. I think it's going to be big things for the offense, for sure.
Yep,
So
I agree. I agree. I think a lot of people were just 1 year too early on Cleveland
yeah,
last season. I was pretty high on them as well. I just didn't know how horrific of a head coach Freddie Kitchens was. But now that I know,
I was high on the talent and I stayed away because I didn't believe in Freddie Kitchens. Luckily, though, that means that I was able to buy the talent at a discount this offseason. So I guess you'll take the
there
win where
you
you can get
go.
it.
There you go. Smart man.
That was a good conversation about Wentz. I think you have a quarterback you want to talk about
I
next.
do. I
Yeah, let's hear
do.
it.
So Deshaun Watson. Let's talk about him. So I am seeing him just fall significantly all across the community ever since the Hopkins trade. And I get it.
For
You
sure.
lose your alpha wide receiver one, initial reaction. I can get that. But after looking into it a little deeper, my bold prediction, Deshaun Watson maintains the same value this season that he did last season, which in most scoring formats was number 4 quarterback overall. So let's kind of dive in and let me explain to you why I feel this way. So using playerprofiler.com, looking at completed air yards, and just for those who don't know, it isolates the yardage gained strictly from the depth of a quarterback's throws. So when you got Brandon Cooks, who yes had a down season last year, but the 3 prior seasons put in work, deep threat. Will Fuller, Lord willing, if he ever stays healthy, sky's the limit. Even Kenny Stills, deep threat. So you're talking about someone who is accurate throwing the ball down the field. Beyond that, also per playerprofiler.com, money throws. Now this is a pass requiring exceptional skill or athleticism as well as critical throws executed in clutch moments.
Okay. This is a new
Uh,
stat for me, so I'm glad you explained it.
yeah, Deshaun Watson had 24, which was number 5 overall. And I don't know if I hit on it, but when I mentioned completed air yards, he had 2,284, which was number 8
Ooh.
overall. So those really stood out to me. You know, of course, there were many of times where DeAndre Hopkins was probably double covered and Deshaun threw it up to him and Hopkins made the catch like he usually does. And I acknowledge that. But I feel like those two stats there show that he doesn't need that to be successful in fantasy. So taking it a step further, rushing opportunities. Let's not forget, Deshaun Watson, great mobile quarterback, still only 24 years old. So we're not at a point where we should expect rushing to go on the decline. In carries, rush yards, as well as rush yards per game last season, he was number 4 in all of those categories overall at the quarterback position. Number 2 overall in rushing touchdowns. I think going into this year, if he's in a situation where he doesn't see an open receiver and no longer has that luxury of throwing it up to one of the best receivers in the game and DeAndre Hopkins, I think we're going to see the carry number shoot up. And I
Okay.
see his rushing yards shoot up as well. It would not shock me if carries and total rushing yards for Deshaun Watson in 2020 almost double.
Ooh.
So I'm really betting on the talent here.
Okay.
And just to go a little further, because I think these tight ends that he has really get overlooked because they don't have that one tight end
Okay.
playing, you
Yeah.
know,
They've got a platoon.
play by play. They got a couple. So
They're
let's
like
look at this
4.
real quick. So Darren Fells, 48 targets, 34 receptions, 341 yards, 7 touchdowns.
He likes them in the
7.
red zone a lot, his tight ends for sure.
Yes. Jordan Akins, 55 targets, 36 receptions, 418 yards, 2 touchdowns.
And these are last year's stats, last season stats.
These are last year's stats.
Jordan Thomas
So
didn't play. Kahali Waring, I think, was hurt all
you
year.
read my mind. They have those 2 young prospects that are up and coming, plus some proven assets at tight end that just get overlooked. So it's not as if he no longer has a red zone target.
For
He
sure.
does. He absolutely does. And then last but not least, the fact that he has David Johnson and Duke Johnson, you have 2 running backs that can easily go in the slot and be well above average as a slot receiver at any moment. it's not, oh, Carlos Hyde's in the game, they're obviously not throwing it to, no, that's done. You can put, they're interchangeable. Put either or, pass, run, I don't know. You tell me, both elite receiving weapons at the running back position.
For sure. That's a really good point about the two running backs that I honestly hadn't considered at all before. Yeah, split them out wide and run some routes. Let's do it.
Yep.
Uh,
So I'm really betting on the talent, whether it's, you know, by pass, by rush. I'm taking the talent. Deshaun Watson's value, it's not going anywhere. Hopkins or no Hopkins, we're staying steady, baby.
all right. Well, I think you brought up some good points, and I gotta say, I actually agree with you here, 100%. I don't think his value is going anywhere. I think it remains completely intact. Uh, I went a totally different direction with why I think this than you did, so this should be interesting. So I'll just say that when you brought this topic up for us to talk about, um, and I guess just to peek behind the curtain, we came up with topics, didn't exactly tell each other how we landed on either one, um, and we're kind of fleshing all that out right now on this video. So when you first brought this up to me, Patrick, the first thing I thought of was when Megatron retired and Matthew Stafford gave an interview, and they said, "Hey man, how's it feeling playing without Tron?" And Matthew Stafford surprised the heck out of everyone when he said, "Actually, and I'm paraphrasing here, but he said that he felt a little more loose, more relaxed, like he didn't feel obligated to force feed anyone the ball, make sure they get their touches, their targets."
I can see that.
Um,
Great point.
yeah, so that's the first thing that came into my mind. So that's kind of where I took my research. So I looked at the Lions. Megatron retired in 2016. In 2017, Matthew Stafford finished with only 10 points less than he did in 2016, fantasy wise. He was the QB7 in both 2016 and 2017. Exact same finish with and without Megatron. But here's the kicker: in 2017, without Megatron, he was more efficient. So he had less attempts, less completions, more yards, a little over 100. So probably just negligible variance in the yards. But again, more yards on less attempts, less completions, and he actually had 4 more touchdowns. That's the big thing for me, the touchdowns. When the defense can't say like, "Oh, 1st and 7 from the 7, or 1st and goal from the 7, obviously we're going to throw a fade to Megatron." Not anymore. So I think that maybe had a little bit to do with like opening it up down there and wasn't trying to force feed Megatron touchdowns. Um, so maybe it's anecdotal evidence, but to me, that's one thing that we can look at. That's probably, and I'm sure we can go back and look at other instances, but this was just kind of the one that popped into my mind. I also made sure that there wasn't like a change in the offense. Jim Bob Cooter was the OC both years, and best football name ever, Jim Bob Cooter. Uh, and Jim Caldwell was still the head coach both of those years. So I don't think there was a change in offense. I think it was just, Matthew Stafford became more of a point guard, and his efficiency went up because of it. And it didn't affect his fantasy finish. So the last thing I'll say about it is over the last 2 seasons, Hopkins has 313 targets, 2,737 yards, and 18 touchdowns. That accounts for 31% of Watson's passes, 34% of his yards, and 35% of his touchdowns. So basically, on a third of the plays, the defense said, "Oh, the ball's going to Hopkins." Like, bank, take that to the bank. You can't do that anymore, right? So you're gonna have to cover those 4 tight ends we talked about. If they're all on the field, we got Will Fuller, we got Cooks, we got Kenny Stills. Don't sleep on Kenny Stills.
And don't sleep on Cooks, y'all. I mean,
Yeah, I mean,
last year was rough, but for the record, when he was playing, Jared Goff's accuracy on deep passes to him was terrible. Don't count Brandon Cooks out.
For sure. I got
He's
Brandon
still elite.
Cooks. As long as he finishes the season, I got him pretty much locked for 1,000+ yards.
Same.
Yeah.
Same.
So, yeah, I actually tried to look at Watson's splits without Hopkins, and I couldn't. It appears to me that Watson has never played a game without Hopkins, so I couldn't look at his production without him. Because, well, if you know anything
Well,
about DeAndre
he
Hopkins,
will
that
very,
dude
very soon,
plays.
my man.
So I'm not sure that his fantasy points are going to increase in conclusion, but I am willing to bet money, actual money, that his passing efficiency actually increases a little bit. And I don't buy that we should fade him. In fact, I think his value remains the same. And the fact that he's falling into the mid second, late second, sometimes even early third round of superflex drafts is
Steal.
that's mind blowing to me.
Steal.
Smash draft if you see that happening, guys.
Oh yeah. I mean,
Don't pass up that value.
even all the oldsters like I used to be who are still in one quarterback leagues.
Yeah.
Taking the weight approach at the quarterback position and getting Deshaun Watson, I have no idea what round that would be, but I mean, to me, he should be right there with Dak and Kyler. So I'm sure you're able to get them multiple rounds after them. So take advantage.
Yeah. I agree. We shouldn't be fading him. I don't think we should have moved him at all. And in fact, I haven't. So there you have it. Bold take, Watson. Not getting any worse without Nuke.
Nope. Too talented.
Yeah, I agree. Too talented. Really, the only obstacle I see is Bill O'Brien.
Agreed. Bill O'Brien, the GM, very well may get Bill O'Brien, the coach, fired, but only time will tell.
Yeah, time will tell. I'll just go ahead and go on record as saying I'm a Houston fan, but I don't let that bias my takes about Houston players. So
yeah,
I just want to say that this is not coming from the heart of a Houston fan. This is coming from my fantasy football brain. So, Side note though, I hope we get rid of Bill O'Brien. He's got to go, my friend.
Yeah. Yeah.
Another topic for a different day, maybe.
Yeah, and we should probably do an episode over him because that would be actually amusing and fun. But I do feel very bad for all the diehard Houston Texans fans. Personally, I'm not at a point where I can claim to be a true fan of any football team. Quick background, I was a diehard Houston Oilers fan. Might give away my age a little bit. I look younger than I am, but so be it. Ever since the Oilers left, I remember I cried for a week straight and refused to go to school, and I've never recovered.
Your
I
first
do
heartbreak.
love me some.
There it is.
Prescott. I love me some Dak Prescott, so I do root for not only the Cowboys but the Texans as well. I'm located here in Austin, Texas, so gotta hold it down for both Texas teams. I do still root for the Titans low key because obviously they're the former Houston Oilers, but leaving to Tennessee, it's just not the same. So that's a work in progress. I'm gonna have to work on finding me a true team and sticking with it. But until then, just wanted to give y'all that insight about me with football.
For sure. Well, I think you got one more guy we want to talk about here. Is that right?
I do.
All right.
Sure do.
Down south in the tropics.
Disclaimer, full transparency. This is somewhat of a gut call. Okay. I do have some stats to back it up. Not nearly enough stats to back it up, but some. But I just wanted to preface and let everyone know, you get those gut feelings. And for me, I mean, this is bold, but usually when that gut tells you something, you should probably go with it. So here it is. Devontae Parker finishes the season as a top 6 overall wide receiver. We saw it last year, ladies and gentlemen. The breakout happened. And did it happen? Ooh-wee. Now, let's start from the top. Preston Williams, love him. Love the guy. ACL tear, he's not pulling a Cooper Cup, everyone. It's not happening. The guy is 6'5". I would, as far as like getting an idea of a timeline of a full recovery, I'm looking more at the recovery time Allen Robinson went through, where he came back the next year, was a shell of himself, and then the following year got back to producing the way Allen Robinson produces. I see the same for Preston Williams. He may be on the field. I don't see him. I don't see it. I don't see the recovery process happening that quick for that big of a guy. I just
For
don't.
sure.
A couple other things. In shadow matchups with elite cornerbacks last year, Devontae Parker, when he was shadowed by Tre'Davious White of the Buffalo Bills, 7 catches, 135 yards. I'm curious if there is a single other receiver that did that against White last season, but I'll have to check that and get back to y'all.
That's a pretty impressive stat line.
Last but not least, Defensive Player of the Year, Stephon Gilmore, 8 receptions, 137 yards. Who else is doing that?
Against
They got a new
Gilmore?
offense. They got a new offensive coordinator, Chan Gailey. I believe he's been retired since 2017. But the last 6 wide receiver ones under Chan Gailey, let's just listen to their target totals. So Brandon Marshall, 2016, 128 targets. Brandon Marshall, 2015, 173 targets.
There we go.
Stevie Johnson target totals, 2012, 148. 2011, 134. 2010, 135. And then back in 2008, Dwayne Bowe, 157. So you're talking about a guy who is a lock for 130 targets, easy upside to get over 150 targets. What's not to like there? You got Fitzpatrick under center. And me personally, I think this will be his last year. I love me some Fitzpatrick.
Me too.
A veteran quarterback, probably highest IQ at the quarterback position, if not the NFL. Guy's well educated. And everything that I've read, heard, and have seen about Fitzpatrick, he seems to be someone that legitimately would enjoy helping develop the future quarterback of Tua.
Yeah, I would agree that I think Fitzpatrick is probably going to at least tutor Tua some. I also agree that I hope that the Dolphins, I feel like the smartest thing for them to do would be to start Fitzpatrick, let Tua learn some on the bench, and then maybe halfway through the season, I don't know when their bye is. I think you said earlier week 10 or 11 when we were chatting
10
before
or
the show.
11, yeah. And I believe their game following the bye is against the Jets. I could see that. I just pray that they wait until the following season, but we'll find out.
Yeah, honestly, I think waiting to the following season is probably asking too much. These days, it's all about learning under fire. So that's my prediction, is that he starts probably around the bye. I like Parker. He's always had the talent. I can't really judge his first couple years in the league because, in my opinion, Adam Gase is the value killer. So I don't know what to really think about his time with them. My only real concern would be that Preston Williams was coming back, because it based on the box scores, again, I haven't looked too deeply into this either, but based on the box scores, it would appear that it took Preston going down for Parker to kind of break out. I would need to look more into that before I can say that confidently. But to your point, I also don't expect Preston Williams to come back and be immediately the same player. I think it's going to take him about a year to get back to where he was. And in that time, I think we see Devontae Parker continue his rise and solidify himself as the number one weapon, the number one receiving weapon in that offense. And you already hit on it. Chan Gailey historically has produced quite a bit of targets for his wide receiver one. Combined with Parker's athleticism, I can see that going very well for him. So, yeah, man, I think I mostly agree with you. There's a lot of questions around Miami in general, just personnel packages. They're obviously still in a rebuild. How long does Fitzmagic play? All that kind of stuff goes into it. So I can see why you say this is just a gut take. There's a lot of variables for this one for sure.
Agreed.
Yeah. But, we're coming up on an hour here. So that's going to conclude our show for today. First one, we had a few kinks here and there, getting our feet wet. Hopefully it wasn't too bad for you guys. Hopefully you enjoyed the content, the takes, the research that we put into it. Any and all feedback is welcome.
Please, any
please
and all. If you liked it, hit that thumbs up. If you didn't,
subscribe,
go
hit the
ahead and
bell.
hit the thumbs down. Leave us a comment. Tell us what you liked. Tell us why you think we're right. Tell us what you didn't like or why we're just so wrong. Anything. It's all about community. Just want to get that started, get the communication lines open, and let us know what you'd like to see next from us. Fantasy Philosophers.
Fantasy Philosophers. That's what it's all about. We're here to start the conversation, have a conversation, get you thinking, get ourselves thinking. Happened a couple times today, brought up some points that we hadn't considered before. So that's what it's all about. The community, just having a conversation and a discourse about it. Everyone's got the same goal. We're all in search of that same thing, that championship. That's what it's all about. So hit us up, the Fantasy Football Philosophers. We will be taking recommendations for things that you want to hear. Until next time, though, we'll put some more research in and we'll come up with some more topics and a new show. Like, subscribe, follow us on Twitter. Until next time, guys, y'all stay frosty and keep it safe out there.
Until next time, forget the imposters. Ride with the Philosophers, baby. Season 1, Episode 1. More to come, y'all.
In the
Stay
books.
tuned.
See ya.